You are in the Temple of the Rants, where I rant about whatever my $15 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get one of these by being one of those. This one's for Shadower, who says, rant about H3H3, if you still follow him, and his podcast. Why do you think Ethan has been depressed, and why do you think his content/podcast has declined, if you believe it has? I haven't been following him still. There was a brief period where I was very interested in the H3 podcast because of the fact that it was a great behind-the-scenes look at a lot of bigger YouTubers, especially like clickbaity YouTubers, people like Joey Salads, who they brought on the podcast, and you kind of got more into the mentality of why they do their content the way they do, exactly how much they're making, like what is the appeal of all this, and it felt like a good coming full circle from the videos that they initially had, because I think that with YouTube, always throughout its history, there's been this sense of like something gets big and then we all kind of try to understand why, or we criticize it for what it's doing and like the predatory nature of the content in a way. So like when H3H3 first really took off and got popular, it was because he was ragging on all of these prank channels and these big videos that were doing something clearly wrong. Either they were literally committing crimes, or they were just being sort of morally dubious, or just manipulative content meant to trick people for views. And they did it in a funny way, and it was kind of like the first exposure we had to this idea of like what's really going on behind YouTube. But it was all from the perspective of someone observing it. So when we got to then have the podcast and these people would actually come on and we'd get to learn more of their perspective, it really humanized them and sort of let you fully get the picture of what was going on here. And that fascinated me a whole lot. Well, now we've kind of moved beyond that. Like we all get it now. These people have sort of been exposed thoroughly, and moving on from there, I mean, I think that they were just a lot more enthusiastic and excited about it when it first started. Like, speaking for me personally, and I talked about this in one of the other rants that I did, I like to just drop projects and move on. Like, as soon as I get bored of something, as soon as I think that the intellectual content of it has been exhausted, I don't want to continue doing it. I just want to go up to the point where it's interesting and then stop. And I understand how, for some people, they want the opposite of that. They want to have like, oh, I've got a podcast show. It's a big deal in and of itself. I want it to run for as long as possible. But if it's not interesting, if it just creates drama or creates problems in the people's lives, if it's, always a struggle to find something new and interesting to say, then at that point, you should kill it. It shouldn't continue going. And it has felt like H3H3 has had themselves in that position many times throughout their career, where they sort of put themselves in a corner with their content. They get known for doing one thing, and then when they try to do something else and it doesn't succeed immediately, they feel like, oh, well, we can't do that because people aren't going to care, so we need to keep doing this thing people care about. But for me, I've been somebody who, if I get sick of it, I don't care if the numbers drop. I will literally cut off an entire content style and just be like, hey, if you don't like the new shit, too bad, see you later. And then, slowly build back up an audience for the new thing if possible. And it's not that I've never been put in a position where I, burned away at so many people and then couldn't afford to continue my lifestyle and therefore had to make more things that would appeal to a broader audience. Like, I get that, but I also am never gonna complain about it. I mean, I might explain it in a podcast here and there, but like H3H3 always has this, I don't know, almost entitled mentality where they get very upset about the fact that their job is hard, or that like there are difficulties in doing it. And it's like, well, yeah, that's the nature of this work, is that it's difficult and that you're constantly going to be beset with companies trying to fuck with you, people trying to fuck with you, and your audience is not going to do what you want them to do. That is the nature of this work, and the sooner you get used to that and accept it, you have to then make a decision. Is it worth it? Is it worth it to do a job that's like this? Is it worth it to have these issues? And I understand how those kind of things wear people down. People get to a point where they feel they need to keep doing it because they want to satisfy the fans, they want to keep making money, they want to, continually have this sense of doing this thing that at one point was a source of pride for them. But again, I think if it's causing you more emotional pain than it's worth, just kill the fucking thing, And like, I tried to listen to the latest H3 podcast for the sake of this rant. The first 10 minutes of it was just basically them bitching about how KFC had taken down their previous video, and now they had to record their episodes not live because the only way that they could they were basically told that if you don't want to have these copyright issues that got their previous video taken down, then you need to not do it live and go through the process of checking to make sure everything works out before you post. And so, they did that because they see it as, oh, this is a career for a lot of people. People's money is tied up in this. We have to capitulate to these demands. Woe is me. And they're, complaining about how this makes the show worse and whatnot. And I'm just like, dude, I mean, it's I understand that the system is bad. And so, yeah, do complain about it. But, to make it out you are a victim in this, it's you should know that this is a very risky business where your boss sucks and where, it's I don't feel sorry for you, kind of. Given what I go through all the time doing this job, the only reason I keep doing it is I would not be happier doing something else. I am happy doing this job. I like it. I find ways around it. I get videos demonetized all the time, and I just put out another video. I just work twice as hard to make up for the things that are going wrong because I know things will go wrong this way, So it's not that I'm unsympathetic to the plight. It's just when I see people as successful as them and in a position where it's you should know by now the nature of this thing, I get tired of hearing people bitch about it. I get tired of hearing people complain about how YouTube is fucking them over when it's happening to all of us all the time, and most of us are having to deal with it by just working even harder than we did, And I also think that Ethan's just not naturally entertaining. He's not somebody who always has something interesting to say. He's not somebody who's always funny. I think that when he has interesting subject matter, he can be funny. When he makes a video about something that was worth talking about, or has a podcast with somebody worth talking to, then it's a good show. But him by himself is not that entertaining, and Hila is not at all. I think that they have times where the charm of their show is that it's fun to just watch them do fun things together, and you can have some vicarious experience of that. But at the same time, the main period I was watching Ethan and Hila was before I was in a relationship myself, and it was always my, wishing to vicariously experience having that relationship, and now I do, so it does nothing for me anymore. So yeah, I guess I don't really know if it's that his content has declined or if my interest has declined, but whatever the case is, I totally understand why he'd be getting depressed if he keeps having so many issues perpetually, and maybe has the expectation that one day he'll have solved enough of it that he can just live his life and do the thing freely. But I think that when you're doing a career where not everything you do is automatically going to interest your audience, you should expect that you're going to always have ups and downs, always have trials and tribulations, and you have to love that part of the job in order for it to work,